Okay, I think we're cool, man. I'm gonna press the record button over here also.
Go for it. I'm already in the red here, so we're good.
Beautiful. Cool. Yeah, have you messed with these little ATEM switchers?
No, I haven't. I've been actually curious how folks are going about it. So is that how you're switching angles live?
Yeah, man. So I went for the crazy one. So I actually have up to 8 angles.
Doesn't that sum up our existence? I went for the crazy one.
Exactly. You know, I wanted that $4,000 amp rather than the $400 amp.
Right. Which $900 fuzz are we talking about? Yeah.
Thankfully, I have not fallen into that realm yet, but close enough.
Oh, dude, in 2 years, we're going to look back. It's going to be like real estate. We're going to be like, remember when they were 900? We should have gotten in.
That's wild, man. Is that a Frank Brothers that you're playing right now?
I have the Frank here because I thought you might ask about it next to me.
Yeah.
This is the Prisma.
Oh, cool.
Prisma was originally conceived up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then he ended up moving down from the Sunset District, for which this guitar is named, moved down to San Diego, where I think that's where his folks are, his family. So he's down there in some rancho, and they're just carving up skateboard, hard rock, maple, and making guitars. So this is one of their alder bodies. So the only thing skateboard about this was actually the original pickup wood, and the inlay on the fretboard is all prismatic skateboard. So
yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
Pretty fun, man. He's a really cool guy. They're like totally a custom shop mentality too, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so that is Lollartron based, kind of Filtertron.
So originally he does McNelly's in these usually, and kind of like a telly neck with a P90 Stagger Swagger bridge.
Cool.
But I went double hums and did the Lollar Imperials, the low winds originally. And then I realized, I did some videos on this recently, if you might have seen it, but you can basically swap in other Lollars from the Novel series and get like a Charlie Christian or a Goldfoil or a Telly, but they're humbucker route.
Cool.
So these are Lollar Goldfoils. And as soon as I popped these in, I was like, this is actually exactly what I wanted in here.
Dude, that is so cool. Yeah, so my next Novo is already on order. And
you got the crazy one again?
Yeah, I got the Miras, and it has gold foils because I've been wanting a guitar with this.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm in love with these. I actually am kind of, it's one of those things you discover it and you get mad because you're like, I only found out about this now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man. I had a guitar with the Lollartrons. It was a Novo actually, and they were a little bit too top endy for me, and like I needed more of a telly thing at the time, and so I went with a different thing. Yep. But now I'm like, I want a guitar with some like Filtertrons, but definitely the gold foils are coming, which is cool.
I say this a lot, and it's kind of a dumb metaphor, but it's like crispy pork belly. It's like a really fat low end, but it's got this like really cooking sizzly high end. Even when you're clean, it's a really nice blend. Stuff.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I caught some misinformation on YouTube at one point. There was one guy out there who was looking at Lollar gold foils, and he's like, gold foils are great, but they don't clean up with fuzz. And I'm like, you're nuts. Like, clearly they do. It's like, this is the Vincent, like full fuzz, but volume down with a treble bleed.
Oh, yeah, man.
So I'm really liking that a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So do you have the Vincent right now? It's on the Dirt channel?
Yeah, Dirt channel is on right now, and I'm actually going through the Waza tube amp expander, the longest name of any product that anyone's ever invented. Everyone calls it the Waza TAE. And yes. People are like, what's that? And you're like, I gotta name the whole thing now.
I just call it the Waza.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you mean their tuner that costs like $250? Right. Yeah, so I'm managing the level with the tube amp expander, but I love it because you can do reverb after the gain.
Cool. And, yeah, absolutely.
This amp does have a loop, but interestingly, you're a Vincent owner.
Yes.
The Dirt channel goes into the clean channel for its level.
It's more of a boost, right?
because then the effects loop is before the clean channel. So if you want to run the clean channel pushed, you can, but then your effects loop, you end up cooking your reverb a little bit. So this gives me a secondary effects loop post clean channel. The clean channel push is pretty nice.
Yeah, totally. I love it, man. Yeah. So the way that I do that on the dirtier amps, because there's like I have the Bassman, which really gets dirty because my friend modded it to a Marshall on the bass channel, and then matchless EF86 channel is really dirty, and then the Two Rocks is clean, and then the Benson I run pretty clean most of the time. But anyway, I have where I run the aux box, and I'll do my dry rig into the front of the amp, aux box, left output straight into the DAW.
Oh, right, because you're going direct out of aux.
Yeah, right output, I'll go into my wetboard.
Oh, yeah.
And then it goes stereo out of that, so I can actually effectively do wet, dry, wet. which is fun, especially if you're like I've had some clients where I was like making a record and they're like, hey, I don't want you to bake the effects in.
Right.
It's like, okay, cool, I'll send you the dry, but I'm going to send you my wet and you can blend it as you wish.
And then you get the real-time satisfaction of hearing it the way you want to hear it while you're playing, which is actually...
Satisfaction is the perfect word.
The most important thing, right?
Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to play like crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching some YouTube video the other day and they're saying how hard it is if you couldn't play with vibrato to make any lick stick the landing, and it's yeah, that's such a good point. Playing with no gain or effects is like that, I think.
That's funny. I a lot of times what I do with my students is that my big thing is improv, and that's what I teach a bunch of, and so I try to force people to be like, okay, cool, we're gonna improvise, but guitar players, it's like, okay, I'm going to practice, and they just noodle around for 30 minutes, right? So I'm like, okay, cool, you can do your improv thing, your noodly thing, but you're only allowed to play hammer-ons. You're only allowed to play slides. You're only allowed to play pull-offs. You're only allowed to play bends, and it's just that constraints thing that's really effective.
As a designer, what separates artists from designers is constraints, I think, at the end of the day. And I remember Josh Smith he always talks about this anecdote, but when he was coming up, he would just limit himself to frets 3 through 6 and said, I got to make it through this song and just plow my way through the caged shapes in this fret range. And because they're all there. Yeah,
totally. Absolutely.
I started doing that, and it really helps. Just kind of open up the fretboard for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's so I would, that's the positional constraint, right? And then you have the single string constraint, you know, where I'm only allowed to play on 2 strings or whatever.
Yep. And I'm barely, I can throw down with some slide, but I think slide is probably the best way to do that single string stuff, right? At least in my book, very engaging that way.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, Derek is one of my biggest influences. Even I play slide, but not like that for sure. I mean,
I saw a song you put together a while ago that might have been a cover, but you were playing slide on it, and I was like, nice, man. It really came together well.
Nice, man. I think that might have been that Neil Young thing that I did.
Yeah, that's right.
I love slide, man. It's so good. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Derek sounds like he's in, church. Have you ever checked out AJ Gent?
I know that name, but. Right. Is he in Derek's band? Or
no, he's another slide cat, and he actually he plays over the top.
Oh yeah, but sitting straight up or on
standard guitar, like this.
Interesting.
It's very wild. Yeah, he's from a family of lap steel players, I think. And I think he just ended up getting the guitar instead, He
was like, I want to do this lap thing, but I want to stand.
Exactly.
That's how that happens.
Yeah. Definitely, man. So we had kind of chatted about gear. Yeah, things that are just blowing our minds. Yeah. What is it for you?
Well, right now I got a few things going on. I'm doing kind of a series of demos with Jam Pedals, which has been really...
They're great. Aren't they in the Southeast?
They're in Greece, I believe.
Jam Pedals isn't in Greece. Oh, yeah. Interesting. For some reason, I thought they were in Georgia or something.
there's a ton of great content out there where they actually show their whole process. I think that Pedals show did something with Jam Pedals, and it was like a little mini documentary. And I mean, they're hand painting everything. It's really wild to see their process. But yeah, Greece. So I was getting into the Rattler recently, which is
nice.
All their stuff. I mean, you've held them, I take it at this point, but
definitely
like, their stuff almost seems like the design goes deeper into the finish than just the veneer of the paint. It's almost like they melted candles together to make the like wax or something, you know? So as a designer, I love their stuff. And so I did a video with the Rattler, and even before I was talking to them about demos, I picked up this custom Wahcko, which
cool. Wow.
Kind of looks like a Mario Brothers level or something.
I love it, man. That's
and it's
cool.
It's actually dimensional, like a Tetris, like a bunch of Tetris blocks. If you see the edge, they kind of pop out. So, and I based that video on, hey, you know, when I was 16, I had a rat and a crybaby wah, and that was my entire pedal board for when I first got into pedals.
Yeah, man. So that was like an early rat too. So that was like the killer.
I don't think it was like the white face rat, because this was like the 90s. This was more like the big box rat.
Yeah.
On the huge rubber feet.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it.
It didn't take Velcro well. I think I had like 8 pieces of Velcro front back to like stack it and get it to stick. The 90s are just, it was so fun back then, but we didn't know shit about any of this stuff.
So I have no idea. How old are you?
I'm turning 40 actually. Any day now.
So, congrats, man. Yeah.
Thanks, man. It's kind of wild.
Dude, I hope I make it. We'll see.
How old are you?
35. I'm not.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. What are you getting into?
Man, so Alex at Tone Heaven just wired a new version of my gigging board. Not that I'm playing that many gigs right now, but
sure.
You know, I like to have.
You're posting some nice gig clips, though. I see them.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I did just do like a few runs, which was a lot of fun. Let me think about it. So you and I have definitely talked about how much we love the Heavy Hand, and
yeah, actually I have it right here because I figured it would come up.
Yeah, man. So I think that I didn't realize for like quite a few years how much I loved the Blues Breaker circuit, and specifically into the Jan-Ray.
Oh yeah, okay.
So years ago, I had a gigging board, and it had a King of Tone, which I think is a great pedal. But for some reason, even after understanding, you got yours there. Yeah.
Just got one. I scooped a good reverb price.
No way, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no worries. But I don't understand what it is, because supposedly it's 2 of the same circuits, like beside one another. But I never liked the right side. I always liked the left side, the like kind of like cleaner, like light breakup side.
It must be the boost side versus the drive.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe there was an internal switch that I didn't quite understand. But yeah, when it was drivier, I didn't really like that side. And at that time I thought it was a Blues Breaker and a Tube Screamer, but recently I found out it was just 2 Blues Breakers.
Right.
And so anyway, I loved that left side going into the Jan-Ray. It was like my favorite, like super sustainy, like just like violin tone, right?
And for those who don't know, Jan-Ray is kind of like a Fender amp pushed to the edge kind of thing, right? So
totally,
it'd be a great platform to boost into, push with other drives, whatever. So you must have been using the King of Tone boost to boost the front of like this Fender amp thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was already like, I was playing like not a super loud amp. At the time I was playing a lot of kind of Princeton style amps, but this was like a third power one, like a Woolly Coats.
Okay.
And it was like specifically this one gig that I played every week that was like a fusion-y, like jazz crazy gig, except we played pop tunes.
Okay.
But we went to town on them, essentially. So anyway, whenever I would step on that combo, I was like, oh my gosh, like singing sustain. And so I didn't really realize it for a long time, and I put other things in front of the Jan rig, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And even like the Benson preamp, which I like a lot, I'll put that in front of the Jan rig. And that was like, I had owned a Duelist,
Yeah.
and I liked the Duelist, but I didn't really use the right side that much. I just didn't love the tube screamer thing because it's just not my thing.
Right.
And then he came out with this incredible heavy hand that has all the things that you want in a blues breaker.
Oh yeah.
And then you can just like, especially if you're in the studio or if you're just like working out a specific dialed tone. I mean, it's amazing with like the toggle switches and everything. I just think it's incredible.
I mean, for folks who haven't seen this, you know, there we go. It's got a lot of toggle switches on it, a lot of options. And I think what Jesse does when he splits these out into standalone pedals from his dual drives is really cool because, like, for instance, like the Soloist, which is the kind of the TS-808 thing, you got to read the manual because you might assume all knobs at noon is where you want to start, but actually bass at 0 on that pedal is where you would find a stock tube screamer. And then he adds the ability to bring that kind of 808 low end in. And so,
nice.
you know, similar, you know, kind of like cheat codes exist as well. With
yeah.
And I love the fact that you can change the amount of compression in it and have it really open or a little bit more squish, you know.
Totally, man. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got one, it went on the studio board, and I put it in that squish kind of compression mode.
Yep.
And played it into the 2-rock, and not that loud. And I just remember this singing sustain. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm such an idiot, but like now I have 2, right? And so
hey,
one's on the dry studio board.
He was an idiot. We're gonna condemn both of ourselves here.
It's so true. So one's on the dry studio board, and now one is, you know, pushing in front of the Jan Ray on the gigging board.
I mean, I kind of felt the way about the Benson Germanium preamp too, you know, the boost, that is.
Oh, the boost. Oh, I haven't tried that one yet, but I did just try the fuzz. The fuzz is on top of my Vincent right now. I'm doing a demo with that.
Good. I actually revisited I'm getting into TikTok now. I know, slap me in the face. I don't want to do it, but I feel like I have to.
Dude, I'm there, man. I don't like it either.
Yeah, the idea of a feed that I scroll through and I don't know who anyone is just, I definitely feel 40 years old, but hey, you know, come on.
The funniest problem for me is when I open the app and it like suddenly like yells at me. I'm like, whoa! I just like, no, let me choose when I want to be yelled at. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was revisiting the fuzz demo I did because TikTok actually has never seen any of my demo work. So I'm starting 0 over there. So I was going through the archives and I was like, man, I love this fuzz. But one thing I discovered with the Germanium boost was that it's a great always on, and even if you slam the Benson pre with it, and if you have a treble bleed, you can still clean everything up. But the noise floor on the Benson boost is so low that even with a boosted pre and then cleaned up, you're not like kind of like really low buzz or any kind of signal beneath it.
That's awesome.
I know Chris told me he was super proud of, like, he discovered the boost during the fuzz development and realized he could make this, you know, regulated temperature germanium thing work, but also get the noise floor lower than he ever thought, which is really amazing. You know?
The dude's a genius, man. I originally got into his stuff like in 2017 November, like right before Thanksgiving. I went to Midwood Guitar Studio in Charlotte, and I had been eyeing Fano's guitars for a long time.
Yep, as one does.
Yeah, as we might. And they had 3 Novos there, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I picked up my Novo that I've had since 2017 at that shop, and I played it through a Monarch, and I was just like, whoa.
Was it Monarch combo with reverb, or was it?
It was, yeah. It was the 112 with reverb, and
it's really nice.
Oh my gosh, man! Yes, I have the. So I eventually bought a Chimera, and he kind of custom made one for me, and he put a master volume on it.
Nice.
And it's so funny, when I first got the amp, I was like using the master volume. I was like, man, this is all right. Then I like cut out the master volume because he put a bypass entirely. Yep. And it was amazing, dude. I like texted him right away. I was like, dude, I just bypassed the master volume, and I'm so sorry that I requested that. Like, he was like, that's how I designed the amp. It's not supposed to have a master. Like, now, like, everything can work in the right. And I was like,
Totally.
so I sold that because it was like a combo and it was too heavy for me, and I was like, man, I gotta get another one. And I'd seen your videos of Vincent, and it was just I've been thinking about it for a long time. And
that's cool, like, man. That's awesome that I was a part of your journey with that.
Yeah, it's like full circle. And I know like your Benson collection is a lot bigger than mine. I see all the tastiness behind you.
There's a few back there.
You got an Earhart and a...
Yeah, the Earhart is a head and cab, and I got that from my local shop, Vision Guitar, and they carried both Benson and Milkman at the time, although it's been hard to get models for either of them lately. So I struck while I could. I picked those up from retail, and like, imagine walking in now and seeing 3 Novos and a Benson. Like, you're like, is this like a fairy tale? Like,
exactly.
on titanium stuff these days. And so the Earhart just, I had been playing like a Vox AC10, I think it was, and I had it modded and clipped the bright cap and did all this stuff to it and threw a greenback in there. And then I played the Earhart, and within 2 seconds, I was like, this is kind of how a top boost should really be. We're going to go ahead and sell that Vox. And then a good friend of mine, this dude, Folk Slave, Chad, who used to be in this band, I think it was it 10,000? I can't remember their name now. Sorry, Chad. But he picked up that Vinny, and the Vinny is like the PDX Portland airport carpet print, which is, I don't see many of those.
I love that, man.
For any Benson model, never mind the Vinny. But the Vinny is really cool because you can go straight into the console or whatever with it and use it, or you can go into pedals with it or the front of another amp with it as a preamp. It has a special output on the back.
Cool. Like almost like a DI out.
Yeah, and it's like pedal level or amp input level, so you don't have to do any conversion. And so I've run like the Vinny into the Earhart before, like straight into the front, and you get that power amp tube distortion grind, but at like, and then you use the Earhart volume as your master volume.
Wow, man, that's so cool.
The only flaw was that you don't have an effects loop, and you can't run reverb into the front of that fire-breathing beast.
No.
Again, the Waza is kind of helping me there. So I totally sell my Earhart and get like an Earhart combo with reverb, but now I don't have to because the Waza's got reverb in it and a loop.
Yeah, so. Totally. Yeah, that Waza's amazing, man. I got into the Aux like when it first came out, before it was really even officially released.
Oh, nice.
And I was just like, oh man, and for me, like I've always thought a Waza would be like on par with it for sure, but for me it was like that if I could say, hey, any piece of gear that I've purchased in the last 10 years was like number one, it would be the Aux box.
I mean, the Aux is an industry standard of I think last time I went to NAMM was right before the world ended. It was great to go to all the booths and just see, because I went in 2017 pre-Aux. And then in 2020, it was like, it was still loud as fuck in there. But you could at least, put some headphones on and escape for a second and kind of hear what you were supposed to hear. It's interesting, though. It's like, I do think if I was playing live, I would probably bring the Waza with me. Because I can still go into a cabinet.
Totally.
And if I really wanted to keep it real, because there are some things about... I want this fuzz going in the front of an amp head and then into a real speaker, but I don't want to blow my head off with 212s.
Yeah.
And you can kind of attenuate with it. But for the studio, I think the Aux is probably the best. But your wet, dry, wet rig sounds like the perfect marriage because you can go straight into the desk or into PA cabinets directly, probably, right?
It's so fun. Yeah. Actually, when I've toured in the last few years, so when I moved to New Orleans, I started playing with this guy named John Papa Grow.
Oh, yeah.
That was like, gosh, that was 2019, so it was a little after I moved. And we started touring, and they were all on ears, and nobody liked the sound of the close mic'd cab in the ears. And I was like, let me bring my Aux, and started playing that, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, it sounds so good. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's what I want to do. So I started touring with it. I got like, the Gator, like kind of Pelican style case, and
nice.
I even bought a second one because late last year I had like 40 dates on the books, and of course they got all canceled, including Jazz Fest and all the other
Right.
great ones. But I had bought
a
yeah. So for me, it's like thankfully I teach a bunch, and I love that, and so it works for me. But yeah, I mean, we know that most musicians are just like scraping by at this point.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's a good aside to say that I think you're an awesome teacher, and I've actually been meaning to hit you up for some lessons too. So this wasn't some elaborate ruse to just get you to teach me guitar for free, by the way.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
But if you're watching this, you should totally hit up Dan Seriff and grab a lesson or two, because if you haven't seen this guy going off, like a lot of his clips, he'll post some pretty calm acoustic stuff and some finger picking stuff too. But if you catch him when he's standing up on stage, he's doing the really quick, really tasteful, beautiful stuff, And I have kind of a top speed I go, and I just can't break that speed right now. And
yeah,
my goal has never been speed though, so it's not a goal on its own. But to see someone in such a state of expression with no limits, I think that's what I think of when I see you play. So
that's awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
So if you want to go into that, we could talk about that real quick.
Yeah, sure. I brought a few other pieces of gear here.
Yeah, you want to let's finish the gear talk, and then we'll talk a little.
I want to say some nice words about Bondi Effects too.
Yeah,
their special Del Mar Blackout. And speaking of blues breakers, I kind of figured since we were talking about the heavy hand, you might want to check this one out. They only release them historically around, I think, like Thanksgiving break. And so last time they launched them, they had a blackout and they had a gold one, but the original gold V1 was going for like $950 at one point. It was
holy moly,
very rare to find one. And the Sick As kind of stayed in production, but the Del Mar dropped off, and they released.
Yeah, the Sick As is like their flagship almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like their active EQ clone. So you get band EQ. It still does the blend of the gain knob with the volume, but this is like, 2-band EQ, volume, gain, and then kind of an open sound and kind of a more compressed sound. And there's varying interpretations out there, whether it's a tube screamer meets a blues breaker or a pure blues breaker. I think Bondi represents it as like, nah, this is something new but classic, and if you like blues breakers, you'll like it.
Yeah.
So you can pick up one of these. Definitely recommend it.
That's super
hard
cool.
to get my camera, but
so that's available like right now.
Not right now, but you should keep an eye. Get on their mailing list. I don't do any business with Bondi. I actually haven't even chatted with them that much, but I'm just a fan of their stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I've followed the Sick As quite a bit over the years, but
you played this one yet?
I have not. I have not played. Really, I haven't played any jam pedals. I've seen them in person, but have not played.
Nice.
What I heard, is that the demo that you did? Because I remember there was some beautiful stuff that you played recently on.
Yeah. It's a chorus or vibrato in the front, and then it goes into a phaser. So in a culinary sense, you got everything you need to bake that perfect univibe souffle.
That's fun.
You can kind of get chorus or vibrato mode out of the initial phase and then into the phaser, and it's all analog, really wild. It's got a triple rate switch on it too, so if you set it low and slow, where you're kind of doing that phaser coasting sound, almost like a rotary where the horn is slow, and then stomp on it, and you'll get into like really cool kind of organ tones going really
sweet well. Yeah, so it's almost like the organ like fast slow.
Yeah, it's kind of it doesn't do like the sine curve ramp, but it's still a satisfying ramp.
Cool.
So yeah, I super recommend their stuff, and just kind of in the shallow end, but I can sense myself getting dragged into the deep end of jam pedals really fast.
Danger,
exactly. Yeah, that's the gear that's going on for me right now.
That's fun, yeah. So we should talk about this because I think we've both been pretty inspired by them. The UA pedals.
Yeah, absolutely. Which one is on your mind?
Well, I got excited and put all three on my gigging board. So I've got the Astra, the Starlight, and the what's the reverb called? Oh, the Golden. Yeah.
So they've all got a lot of modes on them, right? And they aren't full MIDI right now. You know, this is UA was pretty focused about what they did with these. They didn't add every feature or bell or whistle in the world, but
Totally.
so when you're using the Astra, where do you kind of have it parked? Do you have like where the knobs are set as one preset, and then you can tap on the preset switch for just one other sound and go back and forth, or how do you use it?
Great question. I am so brand new. So I literally just got my board back, and I tried the pedals in the store. Actually, I tried the Astra and the Starlight at Soundpure in Durham. This guy named Eddie Berman, who's like a gear guru, really awesome. He kind of shared them with me. I was like, all right, let me get them. Because I'd had the Volante, which I love, and I have it on my studio board. I had that on my gigging board, but it's so big, you know?
It is.
And then I had
very bright yellow too. I'm like, Strymon's doing those midnight pedals. I'm like, I know that whole midnight series is just a ruse so they can eventually launch a Volante that's not that color.
We can hope, yeah. That is a crazy, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It looks great, yeah, all good. But it's so big, and then I had the Wampler Terraform, and I like Wampler, and I really like Brian, but that pedal just didn't do it for me. It had a lot of options, and none of them were really that exciting.
Sure.
I am not really that much of a modulation guy.
Gotcha.
I'm like a super great drives, delay, reverb. That's what I love in life, you know? And so I've been expanding my palette, and I've had some different modulation pedals. I had like the Boss modulation, the big, like the 500
series. Yeah.
I had that one, and I've had the Mobius like 3 times.
Yeah. Always gets this slam on it where the purists say it's not analog drive-through.
And it's like, all right, yeah, and they really care about that on the gig.
They do. I'm not sure any of those people actually play guitar. They just
that is the thing. Is it's like we can nitpick all day, but it's like, man, some of these cats that are like playing the crap out of the guitar, touring the world, and are still playing, you know, the off the shelf pedals, you know.
Yeah. Well, they're playing them off the shelf because if something breaks down, they can buy it off the shelf during the
Exactly. That's not a bad point. You know, I know what I like, and so I'm going to continue to play that.
Yep.
But if people like other stuff, man, more power to them. But anyway, so honestly, right now with the Astra, I'm like bare bones. But like I just recorded a track for a student, and you know, just turn on the chorus, tweak the knobs a little bit. I'm just like, wow, that sounds gorgeous. Like I don't really need to do much,
which is nice.
Yeah, and that was my experience with the Starlight as well. Honestly, all of them, like I haven't found a bad sound. You know, it's like
Totally.
it's like that reverb's too short. Let me lengthen it. Let me take a little bit of the brightness out. You know, this is like too modulated. Let me, you know, but it's like that sounds good.
And they all have a mix, so you can kind of take it back a little bit, right? So you're not. I didn't get a sense that my tone was ever kind of covered in that blanket sound, or like the modulation was like painted on top. It kind of became part of it, which is usually the criticism against digital pedals, right?
Totally.
And this really felt, I don't know, the phaser sounds on the Astra in particular felt like they were really reacting to my playing, and it must be because UA really gets into that whole gain staging part.
Yeah.
Even in a mod pedal, I think they do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you and I both have used a lot of their stuff in the recording realm as well, right? So you're rocking like one of the Apollos as your main recording?
Yeah, I've got a twin from 2014 that's still kicking ass.
Holy moly, that's amazing. Yeah.
I even had to buy adapters to go Thunderbolt, and it's great.
My rack is from 2015, so
I was looking back there. You got some cool rack gear. And then I picked up an Apollo X4 recently, so thanks to U Audio for that. But I'm getting into different demo formats and seeing if I can do a little bit of live commentary while I'm playing, and also mic the cabinet with like 3 mics, like a room, and then like 57 on the cab plus the Royer R121.
Love it.
Special mic clip that actually takes both of those so they're perfectly in phase with each other right there. And so anything that can cut down the 45 minutes of setting up to make videos, I'm
dude,
you know.
All day, man. Yeah, I'm sure you and I could commiserate on that for.
Dude, there's masking tape all over the floor in here. Just where, and I have color coded masking tape with where the mic stands and the tripod legs should go.
Yeah,
So
that's
break
awesome.
it down, build it up, you know. So
Yeah, man. I think you know this, but like I'm building up a studio. I have the building that was like part of. I just moved to Asheville, North
right.
Carolina. And
Mhm.
when I was,
Congrats on the move. Yeah.
thanks, man. Yeah, I love it here. It's so cool. But when I was looking at houses, it was like, all right, where's that 2 or 3 car garage, or where's that, external building? And this was one of the spots I first looked at, and it ended up working out amazingly. But contractors and materials and everything right now are so slow. So
Even wood, I've heard it's just hard to get wood. Even
oh, it's insane, man. Yeah, my HVAC, my mini split is, my studio might be done in a month, which is basically 6 to 8 months behind schedule.
right.
And the HVAC might not be here for another 2, 3 months.
Which
So,
you got a little time till summer, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if your guitars can withstand that summer.
Yeah, well, this is my master bedroom, and so when I moved here, I was single, and I recently met somebody, and so when she's over, we're sleeping in the very small extra bedroom that's over there, and it's like, thankfully, she's a business owner and an entrepreneur, so she gets it too.
She gets it.
But it's still hilarious. I know you're married and you have kids, so clearly this is your particular studio's extra bedroom, or.
Yeah, my wife is so awesome. I mean, she's kind of watched this whole thing grow with me and kind of been in as much disbelief as I have been about it. Like, oh, we're hitting 5K, we're hitting 7, 10. So now she's 15. She's like, yeah, this is a kind of a real thing now, which is awesome. But yeah, this I got lucky. We're on a 1-story, so everything's really spread far apart, and there's no one like sleeping underneath me or something upstairs. And so 1-story is cool. My neighbors have been really tolerant, but I try and keep it, pretty peaceful past 10 o'clock if I can. But this would have been the master bedroom if there was a bathroom attached, and there's not.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
As a result, this is bigger than our master.
That's hilarious. Yeah, totally.
Just okay, boys. Let's just fill it with amps. Back it up.
Yeah, come this way. All right. Yeah, the woes, and look, I mean, I also understand how, you know, luxurious my position is to be able to complain about this, but like,
Sure.
I'm very fortunate. So to those out there who might watch this and think like, this guy's an asshole, but like, it's like last week it was like, okay, cool, I got to make sure that I'm not going to piss off the neighbors, so I spent $600 on vinyl material that goes between the studs and the drywall. So it's like the fact that I can do that, and
Yep.
I mean, I'm definitely eating some pinto beans, but like,
It's gonna be worth it. And when the thunderstorms come through, you won't hear it outside either. There you go.
exactly, dude. I walk in there right now, and like, there aren't even like knobs on all the door handles, right? So there's like open air coming through and stuff, and I close the door, and I'm like, it's so quiet.
It's an anechoic chamber. There's no ambient reflections happening.
Yeah, it's
That's
awesome.
the dream. I haven't allowed myself to go into that level of madness because I feel like to do it, I'm going to have to hire some sort of consultant, because I feel like I could drop X amount of money on that, get done, and be like, I have no idea if that helped, because you can't A/B what it was with what it is.
Totally, yeah. The whole like soundproofing thing is so deep that I wouldn't even really try to go down that. But like the sound deadening aspect is like relatively easy and makes such a difference.
I should do it here. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, in this room you can't really see it, but like I have panels all over the walls, and they're just temporary, but I probably have 17 or 18
just
panels
breaking up the reflection potential.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So otherwise, it's a very squarish room that would be very reflective.
Unless that was your exact sound, you probably don't want it. Yeah.
I'm really into that square sound.
Said no one ever. That's great, man. Well, we've been talking for almost 43 minutes. It's pretty great to have you on. So
yeah, man, great to chat.
everyone definitely go make sure to check out Dan's channel. You go by Daniel or Dan?
Daniel. Yeah.
Yeah, check out Daniel Seriff's channel for sure. And maybe we'll do a series of these. Maybe we'll talk gear and talk a little bit of theory, because there's a part of me that just really loves. I'm kind of like a how guitar player, and it's not just the how of like the how do you run that obstacle course physically, but why, and like why does that work, and can I take that lesson of learning that song and put it in a different context and use it there?
Totally. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's move on to kind of like chatting about that a little bit. So you talked about hitting like this wall of speed, right?
Yep.
So this is really funny, man. So my upbringing was like I grew up on Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that stuff, and did that. And I don't know why, but I had kind of like an interest in Al Di Meola and like that kind of stuff. And then it was like probably the next most influential thing was like Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds, and
it was that era for sure.
Yeah, man. Because I started playing in 1999, so it was like that was like right around that time.
They were huge then. It actually, how many acoustic guitars did Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds sell?
All of them, I think.
All of them.
Pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I had this period where I like was really like, I mean, the first stuff I ever learned was actually Black Sabbath, which is goofy and hilarious, but like I still love that music. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into like the acoustic guitar and everything. But then I ended up like I was like, oh, I got to go to college or whatever, and it was like I don't know what to go to college for. So I ended up going to this art school for part of my high school, which was really cool. Besides the fact that I had this militant, very scary classical guitar teacher that I loathe. And most of my friends who study with this dude like don't even play music anymore. He's like that level of scary.
This is like Whiplash.
This dude is Whiplash, yeah.
Oh man.
And you could probably like blow him over in the street, just like, but like he just had this huge like bombastic personality, really intense. So anyway, like I studied classical guitar essentially for like 5 or 6 years. Would I recommend that? No, absolutely not. Not necessarily.
You got to learn it to realize how to tell other people how to learn it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do it. Don't waste your time. Mm-hmm. If you want to play stuff like what Sean and I like, you don't need that mess. So like especially from that realm, and from a lot of like perspectives, basically what people tell you is that, oh, what you have to do is you have to find that metronome marking, and you have to slowly speed it up. And slowly speed it up.
Right.
And slowly speed it up. And that is utter bullshit. It's like telling an Olympic athlete who's like, say, a sprinter.
Right.
All right, I want you to go work on your sprints today. And what you're going to do, you're going to walk. And then you're going to walk faster. And then you're going to keep walking faster.
Ratchet it up.
Right?
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thought process. And so I believed that for years.
Right.
And in hindsight, many, many years later, what I realized was like, oh, the speed that I originally kind of like gathered was when I was out just experimenting and trying.
Yep.
And so then
pushing yourself, like trying for what you don't think you can do, but just go for it. Right.
Totally. So when I think this was maybe 2017, probably 2017, maybe 16.
Yep.
I saw this lesson with this great guitar player named Martin Miller. And he's this German cat. And I had actually like hung out with him a little bit at one of the NAMM shows in 2015. And one of my great teachers, Tom Quayle, is like really good friends. Played a lot of duo.
Oh yeah, Tom is ridiculous.
He's amazing, man. He's a super incredible guy too. And he's like one of my biggest influences, even though I don't play like that at all.
Right.
I studied with him quite a bit. Even went to Spain and stayed with him for
wow,
a week and stuff. Oh, so cool, man, so cool. Yeah, he's incredible. I love that guy. And so anyway, I saw this Martin Miller thing. I was like, no, like this is actually wrong thought process. What you need to do is you actually need to teach your brain to chunk information by basically playing very quickly. Right. So I was like, oh man, this is like against everything I've ever thought. And so I started to break it down. And this is basically in a very small, short, quick nutshell. This is what I did. So I realized, like, okay, say we're playing in D minor, right?
Yep.
I was like, all right, well, I need to have some things together, like, let me see if I can switch this angle. Yeah. Okay, so I need to have some things together.
I did the angle switcher now. I gotta get
So basically we're in like a classic D minor pentatonic at the 10th fret, right?
Yep.
So I was like, all right, so I need to put things together, and what I need to do is, rather than trying to like speed up to a certain speed, I need to instead, we actually talked about it in classical guitar school a little bit, have a speed burst. Okay? And so I was like, all right, well, I need to be able to play like all the notes on one string. So like my thought was like, all right, well, what if I just burst like the two notes on one string? Like, okay, let me say I'm on the D string and I could just go, all right.
Right.
And I realized that like I could just burst that. I just try and play it as fast as possible. And when I teach this to people, I'm like, okay, don't worry about making mistakes. Right now, that doesn't matter. You can dial it back and clean it up later. But if your brain never knows how to chunk that into like one tiny little fast, like super crazy fast piece of information, you'll never be able to play it fast.
Right. And you're going strictly pick right now, right? No high.
So yes, absolutely. So what I would say is, from my experience, and I don't play nearly as fast as many people on the planet, but I play like as fast as I want to play.
Yeah.
You know, and I do try.
Go look at him play. He's fast.
like I try to play in a musical fast way. Like I care about music. I'm not just trying to shred.
Right.
So I realized that,
I would say for you, soulful is the key word. You play very soulfully and, for the song, which is great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, like, so every tune that happens, I really try to say like, okay, how can I get down in the rhythmic feel of this? How can I intuit in my mind and in my heart, feel like, what does this song mean? There's certain songs that I really resonate with and I can play my ass off on. And then there's certain songs where I'm like,
We've all been there. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, I don't like, no offense to these people, but I don't play wedding gigs. And I don't like, I love Bruno Mars, but I don't want to go play that on a wedding gig.
You 100%. That's cool.
With Bridezilla, anyway. So yes, so the point of all that is that, right now it's like straight up alternate picking there, and the reason is because alternate picking is the essential ingredient to be able to play anything you want, and then from there you can work on things like little economy picking, like, or sweepy thin. Yeah, totally. Like, but your alternate picking is your most rhythmic, accurate, beautiful thing that you can do. It's the most like in the time thing, because every rhythmic event is being played. And then to clarify, if you want to get your hammer-ons and pull-offs and slides together, you got to work on that in the same way.
Yep.
So what I realized was like, okay, cool. I need to be able to play like this, like fast. And so I just started working on bursting, and I would burst on one string at first. And I would think about like, it's funny, like I'm a problem solver guitar player. It's not that I'm a good guitar player, it's like I'm good at solving problems. That's what I think about, and I teach a lot, and so I solve other people's problems a lot. So it was like, all right, I'm hitting this like kind of cap on my playing, like how do I do it? Okay, well, cool, like I'm gonna play that ascending. All right, I'm gonna play it descending.
Yep. Take it apart, juxtapose it.
Yeah, and then the other thing, and this is going to be the anti what most people think, is that I stopped repeating things over and over and over, because all the learning science nowadays says that, number one, muscle memory doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Right? Which is like, people are like, huh? What do you mean? It's like that's what science says, and it makes sense because our brains are the thing that's producing the memory, right? It's not that your fingers actually have memory. Right. Now, do they have stamina? Do they have like,
But there is such a thing as being comfortable in what you know and walking that forest path over and over again until it's just dirt and there's no grass or greenery left. And I think I'm guilty of that as much as any other guitar player. But when I see you play, I don't recognize any of those signposts in the forest that he's been here before. And I think another person I'll shout out for that, Leonard DeListen. If you don't follow Leonard on
cool.
Instagram, I've never seen that dude repeat a lick.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a goal for me this year. I think rhythm is a goal for me. And maybe part of it is making demos with actual backing tracks behind it. I do a lot of improv, and that's kind of more free time stuff, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think kind of hit a wall there. I think I'd like to start digging a little more into rhythm. So
yeah, man, you and I are both like huge Ableton fans, so like I could hip you. That is one of the big things in like how I teach, and both with like my private students, and then I'm doing this coaching program now, and it's like, man, it's so centered around Ableton being like this, like you have a band in your house, and you have a band that can make you sound really great, or it can highlight all the bad things that you're playing, you know?
Yep.
And then you can record yourself, and you can be like, wow, like why am I sounding sad on this? You know, and really target specific stuff. I love Ableton for that.
Me too. Fantastic program.
Yeah, it's so good. So just to kind of like summarize this thing, what I would do is I would not repeat the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, cool. I need to work on these little ingredients, and I would do them, and I would vary them a lot. So I might play them, ascending. And every time I do it, I do like check in. I say, all right, let me relax, make sure I'm not like holding in my shoulders, my neck, stuff like that. All right, and then backwards.
That's tough too. Like, do you breathe pretty evenly when you play? Because I find that sometimes I do hold my breath when I play.
Yeah, man. So I mean, if you look at me playing live, and I watch myself frequently to like check in and say, what am I doing here? I will definitely get into that. Yep. Like really like intensive, but okay. So I kind of shunned classical guitar earlier.
Sure.
But there are definitely like there's a lot that my teacher was like, hey, are you breathing? Are you in that space, and are you thinking about your body? And so yeah, for me, I'm constantly thinking about breathing. I like to meditate, and so I think about breathing a lot there.
Well, they say that, play like a horn player, right? Take a minute to breathe. Like give the notes some space, stop and think about where you're going next, right?
Totally, yeah. And I like to do that scatting thing, even if it's not like audible on the mic. I like the
right, which is great. Music is so innocuous that way, because you could start out doing that and tell yourself, that's not going to take me anywhere. That's ineffective. But if you start telling yourself you can do something, it's amazing how in a couple of weeks you'll start being able to hear the lines in your head before you play them, probably,
Yeah. And I mean that, it's so interesting. Everyone's brain works so differently, but that is, I would say that's the ultimate goal, is be very intentional about all the ideas that you're playing, right? And so if you're vocalizing, or if you're vocalizing in your head, or just like seeing and hearing and feeling, that's all like really good. When you get playing very, very fast, for me it's more like it becomes like this starting point, ending point thing, right? Where I have some idea of what's happening in the middle, but even more importantly, I know where the end is.
Yeah, because you can, as long as you really mean that sentence and put a good period or exclamation point on it, kind of it's not that it doesn't matter what you say, but it matters less. And that's kind of how I learned slide too. It's like, whatever the hell you do during the lick, you need to land that landing.
Oh yeah, that oh man, yeah, when you're out of tune, it's like you're like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, slide is a great example of like seeing through to the end. But I had this guitar teacher years and years ago, and he talked about that. He was like, stop thinking so much about the beginning of your lick and think about where you're gonna end.
I think that was something that really helped me. And like when I first started this demo channel, so I have a theory that most guitar players out there, and I don't mean most professional guitar players, I mean most of the population of guitar players, they learn the blues scale, that position, they learn bar chords, and then they start playing minor blues over major bar chords, and then they call it blues, and then they think that blues is easy as a result. Yeah. They never learn how to play major pentatonic. or they learn the Ionian scale, and then they try to make the Ionian scale work over a whole song and just like get lucky with the notes. And when I say this, I'm not hating on other people. I'm actually projecting my own disgust with myself for not getting a better teacher soon.
Yeah.
And it finally clicked with me somewhere between learning Caged and learning Nashville numbers to know the mappings of a key, like the default key you're going to get if no rules are broken. And then getting into, dyads and triads and all that stuff. And I think all those things together, and then really challenging myself to move beyond, okay, this song's in G, so I'm just going to like live in this shape and try and get lucky with the notes, and instead use pentatonic as the basis to target the chord tones, and then add the spice to the pentatonic as the outside notes. So if it's a Lydian thing, I'm going to add in the flat 5, or if it's a Dorian thing, I'll add in the natural 6th on top of the minor pentatonic, etc. And so once I started doing that, and now I feel like some sort of evangelist whenever I talk theory with anybody. I'm like, if you don't know this, you got to try this,
Totally. Yeah.
Understanding that how it works and why it works was really important for me. So
it's so funny to me because all over the internet, I often see people talk junk about the pentatonic scale, and for me, I was a little different than you.
Do you hate walking on sidewalks too? Because we need sidewalks.
Right, exactly.
Like,
do you like potholes everywhere?
Like, everyone needs air, man. The pentatonic is everywhere. Good. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's like, so I actually originally got really good at I guess I didn't think about it as Cage then because I was just like learning off the internet, and it was like 1999 and I didn't know about Caged. It was just the shapes of the scales, right? And so I learned the major scale, and then I kind of doodled around in that for a long time, and I learned the boxes of the pentatonic, but I didn't really sound very good in them. And I took this whole, path where I was playing this classical thing, and then I was studying jazz a lot on the side. And so it wasn't until I got out of college and had this chunk of time where I started playing a lot of gigs, and it was like pop gigs, and it was bluesy gigs, and it was rock gigs, and it was the blend of all between, and there was country things, and it was like, oh my gosh, why do I sound so sad? It's because I don't know the pentatonic scale that well.
What's that one thing that everybody else is doing that I'm not doing?
Yeah, exactly, man. And it was like once I learned the pentatonics really well, and really specifically the diagonal approach that I use.
Absolutely. I play chess with bishops, play fretboards with diagonals. Like,
yeah. It's like when you're only here versus here, or versus on one string. I did spend a lot of time on one string.
Yep.
It's just like, yeah, it connects everything, and like I have this like really in-depth ebook about it, and it's really, really good. I had a former student who's like an English teacher edit the thing for me, and it's like beautiful, and it's been like downloaded like 6,000 times.
Oh, that's a great feeling.
Yeah. And I get messages about it all the time and everything.
I downloaded it, dude. I think I have that somewhere in my Dropbox files.
Nice, man.
One of the first things I checked out on your page. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I feel very proud of that book. And there's a lot more, like, if, if somebody wanted to dig into, like, how I approach it. And now there really should be, like, a second and third version of it, because there's, like, it's like, earlier I was talking to a student about how, creep goes, 1 chord, 3 major chord, 4 major chord, 4 minor chord, and there's this cool thing where you can just take the major pentatonic of the 1.
Yeah.
And if you just flat the 6, which is just one note.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you're getting like an augmented sound at that point, because it's a sharp 5th, flat 6 thing, right?
Yeah. For me, it doesn't sound like a sharp 5. It sounds like the flat 6, and it sounds like...
It's really the C minor sound in the key of G, right?
In jazz, it's called the subdominant minor. And it could be the 4 minor chord, or it could be the flat 6 major chord. Those are the same sounds.
Which is a great sound. It's almost an inversion with a sad 6th on top.
It's gorgeous, right? And it's all over it's on the Beatles, it's on Radiohead, it's on all kinds of jazz tunes. But anyway, it's like I learned how to do that better because I knew the diagonal.
Yep. And I love flying by the seat of my pants when I play lead, but I think a goal of mine is to keep that wild approach because it keeps it fresh, but also really hold yourself honest to the beat and the metronome, you know? And so like if I'll start on G, I might be like,
Nice, man. Yeah.
so that was like G, B7, C, C minor, right? You know, and
Yeah,
then
totally.
over a 4 minor, you got to throw the sixth in there and bend it up to the 7. You got to throw the
Yeah.
in there and bend it up to the minor third. So when I say playing to the chord, you know, you hear teachers talk about that all the time, but then they don't necessarily tell you how to do it. And I think my construct of it is start with that pentatonic and really isolate the arpeggios in the pentatonic so that you know which notes are safe landing places.
Like
right?
in the key at the time, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, and more than in the key, but in the chord, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The key almost the limited way I was thinking about it, it was shifting the context that every chord is a different key.
Absolutely.
But there's a parent key to those chords that is
totally.
G tying it together kind of thing.
Yeah, that's how the modes work. I mean, that's the funniest thing to me is like when I originally learned the scale shapes, I learned them as mode names, right? So if we were playing in the key of G and say the G chord's happening down here and the band's playing that and I play up here, you see a lot of people on the internet say, I'm now playing an E Aeolian. But if the chord is a G chord, guess what, brah? You're playing in the G major scale. It doesn't matter if you're playing from
what
E
note
to
you
E.
start on. Yeah, exactly.
No, and it's amazingly misunderstood. In fact, I've seen it on guitar magazines. I've seen it everywhere. Start in this scale shape and you're playing this mode, and it's like, no, they forget the word context.
Yep.
What is happening underneath you?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And because I teach friends and folks that have, you know, kind of looking for some guidance with this stuff. And to me, like that most important thing was don't just take a riff in A and play it over A. Figure out how to take these shapes and traverse from 1 to 4 and then 1 to 4 to 5. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then do that Josh Smith thing. Limit yourself to that fret range and find the E shape of G is right next to the A shape of C. And then, of course, the D is right here, right? And
yeah.
So when I play demos, man, I'm just like vibing through those shapes. And then I'll get to that D and I'll be like, wouldn't it be fun here if we didn't go back to G and instead we sharp the root and then we do like a B7th inversion and I'll walk my way to E minor kind of thing, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll bring in augmented chords. I'll bring in diminished to kind of chromatically walk through stuff. And I think I'm constantly looking for those. The big moment for me was probably realizing that you can make a dominant chord out of any minor chord and use it as a skeleton key to get somewhere else, right?
Or any chord, really, right?
Any chord, but like in particular in the key of G, like for creep, you know, you're going to play a B7th here. The ear expects a B minor, and that moment where you hear that out of scale E flat as that major third, that makes people's hair stand up. That makes
totally, yeah,
goosebumps, you know, and that C minor has that E flat in it as well instead of a natural E. And so, I think teaching it that way and making folks like the idea is not to learn every scale shape of G and then play it for 6 weeks up and down the neck. It should actually be playing across the changes. And
yeah.
The sooner you do that, everything changes, I feel like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that one of the things that helped me the most was just like solidifying the basics. Like, okay, well, what notes are in G, GBD? You know, like knowing that like cold. Like, where are they on the fretboard? They're here?
Yep. It's so important. And it's something that I absolutely take for granted because I have been playing for 25 years. And
right, yeah.
I usually would accompany my dad growing up playing Beatles and Grateful Dead and Clapton songs.
Nice, man. That's fun.
Yeah, and I had to like know where those notes were to kind of keep up. And sometimes I'll want to show people, you know, the secrets of the little part of the universe that I know. And then they'll be like, well, how do you know that? Like a G major has a major third of B in it. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, you got to know that part.
Yeah, totally, man.
Shortcuts there. You just got to know it. You know?
Yeah, you just people are like, a lot of times they're like, oh, well, when do I use sharps or when do I use flats, things like that. And it's like, as a teacher, man, I teach that stuff all the time. And it's like I came up with the 4 rules of major scales, like when those things happen, why you use what notes. It's like I didn't read that in a book. It was just like, all right, I've been on a bunch of gigs, I taught a bunch of lessons. Like, what do I tell somebody to make them understand when or why you use these notes? Like,
Well, it's also like, is that even the right question to ask, right? Like, when do I use sharps and flats? It's like, well, what key are you in?
yeah, totally.
Yeah. You're in this key, you're going to come across one sharp because it's the key of G.
Mm-hmm.
But you can bring in outside chords like that have way more sharps or flats in them. But it's not about your number of sharps and flats. It's about, are you hearing what you want to hear from?
Interesting. So that's like a 25-year like playing answer. That's not what you tell people when you're teaching them. You can't teach them that.
I know.
Yes, your ear is the answer, and it's like, I have some cats who they're very bare bones beginners, but like this one particular person, I love him to death, but he constantly brings in the songs that have crazy chord changes, and it's like until I can ask you questions about these major scales and you tell me the answer, then I can tell you why that chord is happening.
Yeah.
But I can't just be like, oh, it's a 2 dominant chord.
Right.
Or oh, it's like, oh, that's the flat 3 chord, and then it's doing a tritone sub or like whatever. I can't use those terms yet because they don't even know.
We don't have the same vernacular yet. Exactly.
And they don't have a reference with like the things that are supposed to happen. If you don't know what's technically right, then you don't know what's wrong, and all of a sudden you look at that and you say, that one doesn't fit, but I like the sound of it.
What's wonderfully wrong about it?
Wonderfully wrong, appropriately wrong, what we want.
Exactly. Radiohead is constantly wonderfully wrong.
And Nirvana's another great example. Like that kind of like, oh, let's play Polly. It's like we start on an E major chord, and then all of a sudden all the other chords are from E minor.
Parallel minor borrowing going on.
Right? Yeah.
I like to show people the Ionian world first. Use the whole half pattern. Map the Roman numerals to them.
Yeah.
Get into capital and lowercase Roman numerals, and then I'll say, so what song do you want to learn? And this is where it gets dicey, right? I'm like, maybe give me 5 that you like, and we'll choose.
I always say 5 to 10. That's a great idea.
And we'll kind of like choose one that's an opportune moment, one that's mostly straightforward but has a little trick in it, just to keep it.
Totally.
And then hopefully you can get into, now see, this is normally a lowercase Roman numeral, but this time it's capital. And where's that leading you? And then so it's one of those things that you probably have this too, but when I'm teaching, I feel like I'm on the right path or something. Like I lose track of time. And I think that's, that's usually the signal that I'm on the right wavelength.
I love seeing those aha moments, man. It's so cool. It's just and yeah, I went from being like a music store kind of teacher where I was like teaching a lot of Green Day.
Yeah. One does, sure.
Yeah, I mean, that it happens, and it's like, and then I graduated to like, okay, cool, I'm teaching at a university, I'm teaching like jazz students and stuff like that, and then it's like, all right, now I'm teaching, whoever just wants to learn and has a good attitude. Like
that's like altitude jumping for you, right? Because it's like maybe your 10 o'clock session in the morning is like, okay, we're taking apart jazz, and your next session is Green Day.
Yeah, thankfully I don't teach any Green Day. Fair. There's like not much music that I dislike, but I just don't get punk music.
No, sure.
I'll listen to Black Sabbath all day, but I do not like punk. Like the Clash, no, thank you.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, man, it's fun. Like, let me think about it today. Like, at 10 a.m. we were talking about Tennessee whiskey. At noon I was talking about like Josh Ritter. Then I had a studio session that we worked on like some African music, because I have this client who's really into African music, and my other colleague is from Uganda, and so we collaborate and we're like writing songs with her and doing covers and stuff, so that's cool.
Awesome.
And then gosh, what else happened? Then tonight the cat that likes to bring in all these crazy songs, but we ended up talking about Creep, which was fun.
Yeah.
But he brought in some Tom.
I'm a huge Radiohead fan, but I'm like, I don't even listen to Creep or Pablo Honey at all because I love
Right. That's so early.
Yeah, totally. I don't never want to be the guy at the Radiohead gig yelling "Creep."
You can't yell that. You're not allowed to.
No, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And then like, another person was like a production client where it's like somebody who's like writing songs and it's like this kind of like rock and roll, classic rock, and then tomorrow morning it'll be a dude who really likes the blues and can't play very well at all.
That's great. Well, you gotta have goals. You gotta get somewhere,
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's like, dude, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna tell him exactly what he needs to do,
Yep. Start with vibrato, I think.
Yeah. And time feel.
And time feel. Something that I don't think you're ever done working on those two.
No, man. Yeah, in the last few years I've hit on some stuff that actually, it's so funny because I spent a long time being a classical musician, which is like this verbatim land where you're playing
reciting speeches almost, right?
Exactly, right? And so people who recite speeches do them in the same rhythm and it's exact, right? When you're improvising, that is a different part of your brain, right?
No wonder you're an improviser because you did the exact opposite of what was kind of forced on you, right?
Yeah, this dude, my teacher was scary, man. So it's like I could never commit to being like, I love classical guitar. This is what I'm going to be, because it was like then he was in control, right?
Yep.
And I was like, and so thankfully I had this other space that I lived in that was like roots music and jazz music and blues and stuff. And I was just like dabbling with it and studying with all these people. And it was like so fun and it was exciting and he couldn't touch it. And so that it's come full circle nowadays because that was a long time ago. But it is really interesting to me because I see all that stuff now. And it's like you wonder, like often, like, okay, there are classical musicians who are some of the best musicians in the world. And you take away that sheet of music.
I know.
And they can't play anything.
It's funny. I have a friend like that from high school, and I would always want to jam because he was a violinist, and he just didn't understand those three letters. Like, it's not jam.
Yes, and the reason is it's a different part of the brain. When you're memorizing things in an exacting way, it's different than if you're trying to improvise. And so like it's funny because I came from that school where it was like, okay, cool, I want to learn how to improvise, right? So that means I'm going to learn how to play my scales really fast and clean.
Yep.
All right, cool, now I'm good to improvise, right? Then I go to the gig and I'm like, it's like you just don't have any material, right?
Nope.
So that's kind of like when
you do public speaking, are you also extemporaneous off the top of your head improviser as well?
Yeah, I mean, I like I teach clinics sometimes and stuff like that, and yeah, I mean, I have a loose idea of like what I want to talk about, but hell no, I'm not going to write anything out.
I'm the same way. Even for really high pressure executive presentations, I'm much better on my feet, thinking on my feet, and reacting to the room.
Totally, man. Yeah, it like for me, I like to live on that edge. Honestly, if I prepare too much, like one of my clients that I worked with, she's kind of like new to performing, and so like her dad's in kind of the driver's seat, and he's like, we're gonna rehearse every week like 6 hours, and it's like we're doing the same song straight front to back in the exact same way, and I'm just like,
this is the Jackson 5 training program.
Exactly, yeah, just like checking out left and right, and just like, I don't even know if I can play the songs on the gig now. I think I know them too well,
and I don't like them anymore.
I know, exactly.
It's worse.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it'd be fun, like if you wanted to, we could kind of dig in a bit more. Like I've kind of, after realizing these things, because for years, like there are people around, like teachers and stuff, and I'm not trying to point fingers hard, but like,
sure.
They told me, hey, learn your scales, practice them. You're gonna be good now at improvising. It's just like, nah, it doesn't work like that.
No, you should know where they are. You should be aware of them.
The second you know where they are, you got to start using them.
It's like knowing the letters in the alphabet. You don't just say the letters in the linear order of the alphabet. You have to make sentences with them.
Yeah.
And like, granted, I say a lot of the same sentences a lot. I got to work on that. But, it's even when I was 15, though, I meet through my whole life, I met people who like play guitar and they don't have that gravitas or confidence to actually like let a note hang. And then like, try something risky, like find your voice with it, and even when I was 15, I was like, I'm gonna go learn Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, even though it seems like Mount Everest. Like, who cares? Like, let's go. The worst thing you're gonna do is fail. And I'm not a overtly Stevie Ray Vaughan player, but that taught me so much. Just like into that stuff.
I feel like any of those like great heroes, so like BB King has been one of mine in the more recent years. Like they'll do that to you. The funny thing about your point there, that people don't want to hang on a note, what I found after teaching for years and years is that people don't want to hold on to anything because they think they're going to get lost in the beat.
Yep.
And so they constantly try to play because they don't know where the beat is.
Yep.
It's like constantly like, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. I'm going to keep playing, right? It's the exact opposite thing that you should do.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm not that confident with the note I would let hang, and maybe it's not going to work over the changes, kind of thing.
Totally. Like they aren't actually like, oh, is that note supposed to be there?
Yeah. I grew up like I put on the Allman Brothers live at Fillmore East or Eat a Peach 3 times in a row and just sit there on the couch and play with it the whole time, and that's how I learned slide years later. Just same methodology,
Yeah.
So I think playing along with albums is some of the best things you can do. Learning songs by ear without resorting to looking them up. And I think at 29, I started doing that. And it only took about 1.5 years for me to start saying, there's some patterns here that are going on. And that's when I got fill numbers. And at that point, I had the skeleton key to 99% of music. Like I could
so true, man.
Why do I suddenly have a B7 in the song instead of a B minor? So
yeah,
a huge part of knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool. Yeah, we should talk more about this at some point.
Well, we've been going for a while now.
Yeah,
probably about 21 minutes longer than we thought we were going to, but I think that's great. And I appreciate your time, Daniel.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
Whether you or I are going to post this or if we're both going to post it, but we'll figure all that out. And nice studio / master bedroom, and let's do this again soon.
Thanks, man. Yeah, let's definitely do it. It's great to connect with you, Sean.
Yeah, you bet. All right, man.
Awesome, man. Peace.
Peace.